Ilara walked through the quiet streets of her village, her bare feet brushing the cold stones. The morning mist hung low, curling around the thatched rooftops and the trees on the hill. Life had always been simple for her, though not easy. Orphaned at a young age, she had learned to survive alone, relying on her wits and courage. The villagers often whispered about her family's past, about curses and old magic, but she never paid much attention. Legends were just stories, weren't they? Yet that morning, a strange feeling ran through her like an invisible thread pulling her forward. She could not explain it. The Festival of Shadows was happening tonight, a rare event that came once every decade. It was a festival she had never attended, for the villagers feared it. The festival was the moment when the Alpha King of Valorith chose a mate, not by love but by some unknown mystical force. Every noble and commoner in the kingdom would gather to witness it. Ilara had never been concerned with kings or festivals, but the feeling tugging at her heart would not let her ignore it. She wandered closer to the main square, curiosity mingled with unease. Around her, the town prepared for the festival. Lanterns glowed faintly, casting soft golden light on the cobblestones. People hurried, some whispering prayers, others murmuring fears. She could hear faint drums in the distance, their rhythm deep and steady, as if calling to something buried inside her. The sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky with streaks of red and purple. Ilara stepped into the square where a crowd had already gathered. At the center, a platform of black stone rose, smooth and shining under the lantern light, and there he stood, the Alpha King. Lyrian was taller than any man she had ever seen, with broad shoulders and a presence that seemed to pull the air around him into stillness. His hair was dark as midnight, and his eyes, a shade of amber, seemed to look into her very soul. Around him the nobles bowed, but Ilara felt no fear, at least not at first. Instead, she felt a strange connection, like a thread of light linking them across the space in the crowd. Lyrian's gaze fell on her. Just for a moment, their eyes met and the world seemed to hush. The people around them continued to murmur, but Ilara could only hear the pulse in her own chest. And then he spoke, his voice calm yet commanding, carrying across the square. "I choose her." A hush fell over the crowd. Murmurs rose and fell like waves. She? Chosen by the Alpha King? The word sounded impossible. Her legs trembled and she took a step back. The villagers whispered warnings. This was not safe. No one chose freely in the king's court. To be chosen was to be bound. Ilara felt panic rising, but Lyrian's gaze did not waver. His eyes held a strange intensity, as if he sought answers from her very being. Though she felt fear, a part of her wanted to step forward to meet that gaze fully. She wanted to understand why. Why her? Before she could think further, a hand reached for hers, strong, warm, and unyielding. It was not Lyrian, but an attendant guiding her toward the platform. Her heart pounded as the crowd parted, allowing her to walk toward the Alpha King. Every step felt surreal, as if she were moving through a dream where danger and destiny mingled. When she reached the platform, Lyrian lowered his hand. He studied her silently, his face unreadable. The air around him seemed charged, as if some unseen force hummed between them. He took a step closer and she could feel it, a magnetic pull. "Impossible to resist, you carry a mark," he said softly, almost to himself. "One that was hidden, yet it called me to you." Ilara looked at her wrist, and indeed there was a faint, almost invisible mark etched into her skin. She had never seen it before. The moment their eyes met again, it glowed faintly, a soft amber light that matched his eyes. Her breath caught in her throat. "You were chosen long before you were born," Lyrian said, his voice a whisper meant only for her, though she felt the weight of it in every word. "And now, you must come with me." Fear surged, but so did something else. Curiosity, wonder, and a strange recognition she could not explain. As he extended his hand toward her again, Ilara felt the threads of her life shift, intertwining with his in ways she did not understand. She could no longer walk away. The journey to the Alpha King's fortress was silent save for the soft echo of their footsteps. Ilara's mind swirled with questions. The fortress, perched on jagged cliffs overlooking the valley, was more magnificent and intimidating than she had imagined. Its spires reached into the dark sky and torches burned along the walls, casting long shadows that danced like spirits. Inside, Lyrian led her through halls carved from black stone, adorned with tapestries depicting battles, alliances, and ancient rituals. Despite its grandeur, the fortress felt lonely, echoing with whispers of past kings and their choices. Ilara sensed the weight of history pressing down on her, and yet she also felt a strange sense of belonging. In the center of the grand hall, Lyrian stopped. He turned to her, his amber eyes softening slightly, revealing a flicker of vulnerability beneath the commanding exterior. "You are not just my mate," he said quietly, "but the key to something far greater. A curse lies in your blood, a power that has slept for generations. I do not fully understand it, but I must protect you, and you must learn to protect yourself." Ilara's mind raced. A curse power? She had never been special, never considered herself anything but ordinary. Yet here she was, standing in the presence of the kingdom's most feared and respected ruler, bound to him by forces she could not see. She wanted to speak, to ask questions, but words failed her. All she could do was nod, feeling the weight of destiny settle onto her shoulders. Lyrian's expression softened, almost imperceptibly. "Tonight," he said, "you will rest. Tomorrow your training begins. You will learn the ways of the court, of the pack, and of the power that flows through you. But remember, this bond is not simple. It is not safe. It is not gentle. It is the only path to understanding why you were chosen." Ilara swallowed hard, her fear mingling with determination. She did not fully understand what awaited her, but she knew one thing. She could not turn away. Something deep within her stirred, a spark of courage she had not known existed. As she was shown to her chamber, a faint glow on her wrist pulsed softly, a reminder that the bond had begun. She stood by the window, looking out at the fortress walls, the dark cliffs, and the forest below. The night was quiet, but the wind seemed to whisper secrets, calling her toward a destiny she did not yet understand. And in that moment, as the first stars appeared in the sky, Ilara realized that her life had changed forever. She had been chosen by the Alpha King, not by chance, but by forces older than the kingdom itself. The question that burned in her mind was simple yet terrifying. Why me? The answer, she felt, would not come easily. And somewhere in the shadows, Lyrian watched over her, the pull between them growing stronger with every heartbeat, every unspoken word. A connection had been formed, unseen yet undeniable, and the threads of fate had begun to weave a story that neither could escape. As the night deepened, Ilara touched the glowing mark on her wrist. She felt a surge of warmth, a silent promise that her journey had only begun, and far away beyond the fortress walls, a whisper seemed to echo in the wind. The bond has begun. But the shadows are watching. The first night in the Alpha King's world ended, yet the questions, the tension, and the unspoken power between them remained, waiting for the dawn to reveal what destiny had in store. The morning sun filtered through the tall, narrow windows of the fortress, casting slivers of gold across the stone floor. Ilara sat on the edge of her bed, her eyes tracing the walls lined with ancient tapestries. Every image told a story: warriors, kings, queens, and battles long forgotten. Yet despite the beauty and history, a sense of foreboding lingered. She was no longer the girl who walked barefoot through her village. She had been chosen by the Alpha King, and that choice had changed everything. Her thoughts were interrupted by the soft sound of footsteps. Lyrian appeared at the door, his dark cloak brushing the floor, his amber eyes calm but unreadable. "Today begins your training," he said simply. "It is not about power or weapons alone. You must understand the kingdom, the people, the rituals, and the forces that surround you. Only then will you understand why you were chosen." Ilara rose, a mixture of fear and determination knotting her stomach. She had expected to be coddled, to live in comfort as the Alpha King's mate. Instead, she was faced with lessons that would test her mind, body, and heart. Lyrian led her through a corridor that twisted like a labyrinth. The fortress was larger than she had imagined, with hidden stairways, shadowed halls, and rooms that seemed to breathe with history. They entered a training chamber. Its walls were black stone, polished smooth, and lined with weapons of every kind: swords, staves, and strange artifacts that hummed with unseen energy. "You will begin with the basics," Lyrian said, handing her a wooden staff. "Strength is not just in muscle. It is in focus, in patience, in knowing your own mind." Ilara gripped the staff, feeling its weight unfamiliar in her hands. She was clumsy at first, swinging too hard or too fast. Lyrian corrected her posture, his hands brushing hers, firm but careful. Each touch sent a shiver through her, and she realized the pull between them was stronger than ever. "Good," he said softly. "Control comes with understanding, not force." Hours passed. Ilara fell, rose, and fell again. Each mistake taught her something, not just about the staff, but about herself. She discovered resilience she had never known, a spark of courage igniting with every step. And through it all, Lyrian watched, guiding her, challenging her, yet never overbearing. During a short rest, Ilara noticed the faint glow on her wrist, the mark. It pulsed softly as if alive, synchronizing with her heartbeat. She did not understand its power, but she felt its warmth and the strange certainty that her destiny was tied to it. Lyrian sat beside her, his gaze fixed on the distant horizon beyond the fortress walls. "You are not just learning to fight," he said quietly. "You are learning to survive in a world where shadows and light are never separate. You carry a curse and a gift, and neither can be ignored." Ilara's voice trembled as she asked the question that had haunted her since the festival. "Why me? Why was I chosen?" Lyrian's eyes darkened, filled with memories and burdens he did not share lightly. "Because your blood is linked to something ancient, something that has slept for generations. The kingdom needs you. I need you. But the truth, the full truth, will reveal itself in time. You must be ready." Her heart raced, a mix of fear and curiosity. She wanted answers, but she also sensed that the journey itself, the learning, the struggle, the moments between them was part of the truth. The days passed in a rhythm of training, lessons and small moments of quiet discovery. Ilara learned the ways of the court, the hierarchy of the nobles, and the rules that bound the Alpha King. She learned to read the subtle signs of loyalty, deception, and hidden intent. Every lesson tested her patience but also sharpened her mind and instincts. Lyrian, for his part, was both teacher and enigma. He demanded obedience yet encouraged questions. He was strict yet occasionally softened, allowing glimpses of a man shaped by burdens and solitude. Ilara could not deny that a strange bond grew between them, a connection that went beyond duty or fear. One evening, as the sun set in fiery streaks across the cliffs, Lyrian took her to the balcony overlooking the valley. Below, the forest stretched endlessly, dark and silent, as if hiding secrets. "There are forces in this world older than kings or kingdoms," he said. "You must learn to face them, to understand them, and to choose how to use your own power." Ilara watched the shadows creeping across the land. "I feel it," she admitted softly. "Something in me, something that's always been there, waiting." Lyrian's gaze met hers, sharp and penetrating. "Yes," he said, "the bloodline is awakening. But awakening is dangerous. It tests loyalty, courage, and the heart, and there are those who would see it destroyed rather than understood." A shiver ran down Ilara's spine. The words were a warning, yet they carried a strange promise. She was no longer just a girl from a small village. She was a force in the making, bound to the most powerful man in the kingdom and yet not fully under his control. That night, as she lay in her chamber, the glow on her wrist pulsed brighter. She dreamed of shadows moving through the forest, whispering her name. Faces appeared, unfamiliar yet familiar, warning and guiding her. She woke with a start, heart pounding, and realized that the threads of destiny were pulling her forward, whether she liked it or not. The next day, a messenger arrived at the fortress, bearing news from the outer kingdoms. A prophecy long hidden was stirring. Lyrian received the message silently, his face darkening. "They know something," he murmured, mostly to himself. "Something about the bloodline. If they discover it too soon, it could be catastrophic." Ilara felt a mixture of fear and determination. "What should we do?" she asked. Lyrian turned to her, his expression unreadable. "We prepare. You must be ready for anything. The bond between us is not just a choice. It is protection and it is power. Trust it, even when you do not understand." Over the following weeks, Ilara's training intensified. She learned to wield her growing power, to sense danger, and to move with the grace and precision of one attuned to the Alpha King's world. Lyrian was both patient and relentless, pushing her beyond what she thought possible. And in the quiet moments when their hands brushed or their eyes met, there was a tension that neither could ignore, a connection that went deeper than fear, curiosity, or duty. One evening, during a private lesson in the training hall, Lyrian stopped her mid-motion. His amber eyes held something raw and unspoken. "You are stronger than you know," he said, "stronger than even I expected. But strength alone is not enough. The curse within you tests hearts, not just bodies. It will reveal truths, lies, and desires. You must be ready for all of it. Ilara nodded, her pulse quickening. I want to be ready, she said, though her voice betrayed her uncertainty. Lyrian stepped closer, the distance between them shrinking. And you will be, he said quietly, because you are not alone, and because the bond we share is stronger than any curse, any enemy, any shadow that dares to challenge us. The words sent warmth through her, mingled with fear and longing. She did not fully understand him, nor the depth of the forces surrounding them. Yet she felt a growing certainty. The Alpha King had chosen her not by whim, but because they were bound by destiny, by fate, and by something ancient and unbroken. Just as the lesson ended, a sudden commotion echoed from the fortress gates. Guards ran past, faces pale, and Lyrian's eyes darkened. He moved to the balcony with Ilara scanning the distance. Figures cloaked in black were approaching, moving silently through the forest below. They know, Lyrian said, his voice tight with urgency, and they are coming for you. For the bloodline. Ilara felt fear rise, but also determination. She would not run. She had trained, learned, and grown stronger. And more than that, she had formed a bond with the Alpha King, a connection that would not be broken. Lyrian's hand found hers, firm and grounding. We face this together, he said. The shadows are near, but we are ready. You and I, together, we are stronger than they imagine. The wind howled through the fortress, carrying with it the scent of danger and the promise of trials yet to come. Ilara looked into Lyrian's eyes, and in that moment, she understood. The journey ahead would test everything, courage, heart, and the bond between them. And somewhere in the darkness beyond the walls, the first whispers of the prophecy began to stir, echoing across the land, hinting that the shadows were only the beginning. Ilara tightened her grip on Lyrian's hand, her heart steady despite the fear. She had been chosen, yes, but she would face the coming trials with strength, courage, and the growing certainty that destiny had brought her here for a reason. The story of power, love, and shadowed secrets was far from over, and as night fell again over the fortress, the bond between Ilara and the Alpha King grew, unseen yet unbreakable, waiting for the challenges the dawn would bring. The fortress lay in uneasy silence as the first light of dawn painted the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Ilara stood at the balcony, the wind tugging at her hair, and watched the forest below. Shadows moved among the trees, figures cloaked in darkness approaching silently but with purpose. She could feel it in her chest, the stirrings of the prophecy, the awakening of her bloodline, and the danger that came with it. Lyrian joined her, his presence steady and commanding. His amber eyes scanned the horizon, then softened as they met hers. This is the moment, he said quietly. You must trust yourself, and trust the bond we share. Ilara nodded, gripping the glowing mark on her wrist. The mark pulsed stronger now, a warm light spreading through her veins. She had trained, learned, and grown into her power. Fear was still there, but courage had replaced the paralyzing uncertainty of the past weeks. She would face this, not as a frightened girl, but as the mate of the Alpha King. Bound by fate and by strength, the figures reached the base of the cliffs, revealing themselves as shadowed warriors, clad in black with eyes that glimmered like embers. They were the heralds of the prophecy, those who had long sought to suppress the bloodline and its power. They moved with precision, silent as the night, yet radiating a force that made the hairs on Ilara's arms rise. Lyrian stepped forward, placing himself protectively in front of her. You do not know what you face him, he said, his voice low but unwavering. But together we will face it. The bond we share is not just for this moment, it is for all that is to come. Ilara felt a surge of warmth and strength at his words. The bond was more than symbolic. It was real, pulsing with magic and connection. She tightened her grip on his hand, feeling the energy flow between them, a shield and a guide. The shadowed warriors advanced, their movements swift and deliberate. Lyrian and Ilara descended to meet them, moving in perfect synchrony, their connection almost instinctive. Ilara's staff, once awkward in her hands, now felt like an extension of her body. She blocked, struck, and parried with precision. Lyrian fought beside her, his movements fluid and deadly, yet always protective. The battle was more than physical. The shadows seemed to test not just their skill, but their hearts. Each strike revealed doubt, fear, and hidden desires. Ilara could feel the pulse of her own magic responding to hers, the mark on her wrist glowing brighter with each heartbeat. She realized that the prophecy was not about destruction, it was about truth. It would reveal what was hidden inside and out. One of the shadowed figures lunged toward her, but Lyrian intercepted, holding the warrior back with a force that made the air vibrate. "Focus!" he shouted. "Do not let fear control you." Ilara's vision cleared, and she felt the bond guide her movements. She struck not with rage, but with clarity. The warrior fell, dissipating into shadow, and she felt a pulse of power affirming her strength. As the battle continued, Ilara noticed a strange phenomenon. The forest itself seemed to respond to her presence. The trees swayed, shadows twisted, and the light from the mark on her wrist reached outward, illuminating the darkness. She realized then that the prophecy had not lied. She was the key, not because of her lineage alone, but because she had courage, compassion, and the will to act with both. Lyrian, seeing her realization, fought with renewed precision. He moved as if guided by her presence, their bond making them stronger than any enemy. Together they advanced, the shadows retreating under the combined force of their connection and power. Finally, only one figure remained, a dark, imposing form cloaked in black. Its voice echoed low and resonant, as if speaking from the depths of the forest itself. "You were not meant to awaken so soon," it said, its words carrying both warning and awe. "The bloodline is powerful but untested. You may succeed, or you may bring ruin." Ilara stepped forward, her heart steady. "We will not fail," she said firmly, feeling the strength of the bond flow through her. "Not while we stand together." The figure moved closer, and a brilliant flash of energy erupted from the mark on her wrist. It pulsed outward, a wave of light that struck the figure and enveloped the forest. The shadowed warrior froze, then slowly dissolved, leaving only a faint wisp of darkness. Lyrian approached, placing his hands on her shoulders. "You did it," he said softly. "Not alone, but together. That is the true power of the bond." Ilara's chest heaved, her breath coming in sharp, exhilarated gasps. She had faced fear, uncertainty, and the unknown, and emerged stronger. She had proven herself, not just to Lyrian or the kingdom, but to herself. The fortress trembled slightly, as if acknowledging the power that had been awakened. Ilara felt a strange sense of calm. The prophecy, once a source of fear, had become a guide, showing her the strength within and the connection she shared with the Alpha King. Lyrian pulled her into an embrace, his amber eyes soft with relief and admiration. "You are extraordinary," he whispered. "Stronger than anyone could have imagined. Stronger than even I expected." Ilara rested her head against his chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. "I was afraid," she admitted, "but I was not alone. You were with me." He kissed the top of her head gently, "And I always will be." The bond is more than magic or prophecy. It is trust, it is courage, and it is love. That is why you were chosen. For the first time, Ilara understood. The choice was never about power alone, nor about destiny imposed from the outside. It was about connection, understanding, and the strength that came from facing challenges together. She had found not just a protector in Lyrian, but an equal partner, a mate bound by fate and choice alike. The days that followed were quieter. The shadowed warriors had retreated, and the forest seemed to hum with a renewed energy, as if the kingdom itself recognized the awakening of the bloodline. Ilara continued her training, but now with confidence and purpose. Every movement, every lesson was infused with the knowledge that she was capable, powerful, and not defined by fear. Lyrian, too, had changed. The rigid control he had once maintained softened, replaced by a respect and trust that deepened their bond. He allowed her insight, listened to her ideas, and fought alongside her as a partner rather than a guide. The Alpha King and his chosen mate were no longer separated by fear or hierarchy. They were united, bound by shared trials and a profound connection. One evening, standing again on the balcony where it had all begun, Ilara looked out at the horizon. The sky was painted in shades of gold and violet, the first stars twinkling faintly. She could feel the energy of the land, the whispers of prophecy, and the warmth of the bond that had saved them both. Lyrian joined her, silent but present. He took her hand, the familiar pulse of their connection steadying her. "This is only the beginning," he said. "The shadows may return and new challenges will rise, but together we are stronger than anything they can send." Ilara smiled, a mixture of relief, pride, and quiet joy. "Then we face them together," she said, her voice steady. The wind swept across the balcony, carrying with it a sense of promise. The kingdom, once shadowed by fear and prophecy, now held hope and strength. Ilara had been chosen not because of chance, but because she had courage, heart, and the bond that no darkness could break. And as the stars glittered above, she realized that the Alpha King and his mate had not only survived the shadows, they had transformed them. Together, they had turned fear into strength, prophecy into understanding, and destiny into a future they would shape side by side. The fortress no longer felt dark or intimidating. It was a place of power, trust, and connection, a home for those who faced the world with courage and love. Ilara knew that whatever lay ahead, she and Lyrian would meet it together, bound by a bond that was unbreakable, eternal, and true. For the first time in her life, Ilara understood why she had been chosen, and she embraced it fully, ready to face whatever the future held, with the Alpha King by her side.